time to actually review a Belphegor album, which is the first time I'm ever reviewing one of their albums here on the Cover Killer Nation or Cover Killer channel. And you might be wondering why that is, and that's really because it just is. I don't have a very good reason for it, to be perfectly honest with you. But they are a blackened death metal band that's out of Austria, that's on Nuclear Blast Records, and their 2011 album, Magick Necromance, is what's coming out here in a couple of weeks here in America. Now, this is an album that, if you're a fan of this particular act, is going to just do one thing, and it did the same thing for me, considering I've followed this band throughout their Nuclear Blast years in the 2000s. And that's going to be that it's just going to sort of seem like business as usual. And is this necessarily a negative thing? It's not really. However, it's like I said with some other genres, or like I said with the Syriana review, sometimes business as usual is better than nothing at all. With the Syriana review, it was kind of a little bit more on the negative front, considering everything starts to sound the same, not to mention leans a little bit more to the commercialized side. However, with Belphegor, you're not going to exactly get that, considering blackened death metal is something that's extremely brutal all the time. Not to mention, on this particular album, they definitely dial it up a bit. Now, there's been a lot of debate, and the debate has actually spilled forth onto YouTube reviewers' channels, not to mention onto some of these videos, that there's a sound war going on. And the sound war is something that's being done inside production, inside of kind of behind the veiled curtain, so to speak, in order to try to make the loudest wall of sound ever. Wow. Now listen, whether or not that's true or not, I can kind of see where you're coming from, because a lot of these albums have gotten some over-the-top production, and it's caused them to be a whole hell of a lot louder, which makes them sound a whole hell of a lot more meaner and a whole lot of hell of a lot more evil. And it's making me talk a whole hell of a lot stupider. However, it's something that I really don't pay that much of attention to. One thing that I will pay attention to here, though, is that even on just some earlier albums, such as Pestocalypse 6, there's definitely a little bit of a variation between then and now. And it's kind of funny to mention this whole wall of sound deal, specifically now here in 2010-2011, whenever there definitely is a huge differential. If you listen to this album, it's loud as hell, and it's mean as hell, and it is evil as hell. Like I said, the formula hasn't changed much, but that sound and that refined production is definitely the first thing that you're going to notice. And it definitely makes this album a lot more impressive than perhaps some of the earlier albums may just hear. You know, something that you might be able to pick up on a little bit more on this particular release than on others. Does that necessarily make the music that's within better or any different than some of the stuff that's come out in the recent past? Well, not really. In fact, I'll be perfectly honest, this is a Belphegor album that's just going to kind of be like all of them. This is one of those bands for me that whenever I decide to listen to them, I listen to them in spurts. I'll listen to one album, then I'll want to listen to 3 or 4 others, and then I won't listen to them for about 2 months or so. It's not so much that Belphegor is even a bad band. In fact, the one thing about this band is that even though this album is business as usual, this album's damn good, because as far as blackened death metal is concerned, Belphegor is one of the best. However, considering there's not really all that much variation throughout a lot of these records throughout the years, it sometimes can become a little bit tedious in order to really spotlight something that really grabs your attention that's at all really minutely different. And before you guys start flacking me for talking shit about Syriana about that and not really going that deep into the whole Belphegor thing, well, this album has something different. It's actually good. In fact, this is an album that I'd probably give a solid 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, it's big, it's mean, it's evil, and it sounds fantastic. However, the songwriting within is also very eloquently done. There's little touches, little subtleties that you're only going to hear in a Belphegor album that's just going to really dial up that evil volume just a little bit even higher. And that's something that's definitely nice. Are some of their earlier works, some of the stuff that's prior to Nuclear Blast, maybe superior? Well, sure. In fact, there's a lot of people out there that may actually attribute their move to Nuclear Blast as kind of like going, swirling around a toilet very slowly but surely. But I gotta say this, they've stayed the course throughout this whole entire stay. And that's not a bad thing at all for this particular group, because they're leading blackened death metal into the 2010s, and they're doing so very, very well with an excellent album. So, overall, if you like this style of music, definitely check it out. If you're too concerned about the wall of sound or the fact that it sounds like the last 2 or 3 albums, only with heightened noise, well, stay away, because you're pretty much a loser anyways. This is Cover Killer. I'll talk to you guys next time.